a steady forward motion that keeps you moving, even when the destination feels distant. You begin to understand that the journey itself is changing you. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually. You're learning to adapt, to find comfort in small things, to measure progress not in miles, but in moments. A successful river crossing, a shared meal that's slightly better than the last one, a conversation that makes the evening feel shorter. These become your markers. As the days turn into weeks, the idea of gold remains in the background, less of a constant thought, more of a distant goal. What occupies your mind now is the immediate, the next stop, the next meal, the next stretch of road. And yet, every so often you catch yourself imagining it again. The river, the glint, the possibility, it's enough to keep you going. Because even though the journey is long and often tiring and occasionally filled with meals that defy easy description, there's still that quiet promise ahead. Something waiting, something worth all of this effort. Or at least that's what you keep telling yourself as the wagon creaks forward, carrying you deeper into a landscape that feels both unfamiliar and strangely welcoming. 1 mile at a time, after a few weeks on the trail, the idea of travelling west stops feeling like a grand adventure and starts feeling like your entire existence. You wake before sunrise, not because you want to, but because everything around you insists on it. The air is cool, almost gentle, and for a brief moment, lying there wrapped in a blanket that may or may not still be clean, you forget how far you've come. Then someone nearby coughs. Another person starts packing. A wagon wheel creaks, loudly announcing that rest is over. And just like that, the day begins again. You stretch, sit up, and take in the quiet scene. The camp is slowly coming to life, small fires flickering, people moving with that half-awake determination that suggests no one is entirely ready, but everyone knows they have to be. A mainstream historical fact, many overland travellers during the California Gold Rush formed temporary communities along the trail, often referred to as wagon trains. These groups provided safety, shared resources, and a sense of structure in an otherwise unpredictable journey. And you can feel that structure now. There's an unspoken rhythm to everything. Some people gather water, others prepare food, usually something simple, repetitive, and surprisingly comforting in its predictability. You've come to appreciate meals that require minimal explanation. Beans again? Excellent. At least you understand the menu. You help pack the wagon, folding blankets, securing supplies, making sure nothing has mysteriously wandered off overnight, which, oddly enough, can happen. Not always intentionally. Sometimes things just disappear into the general chaos of travel. A quirky tidbit. Travellers often tied important items to their wagons or kept them close at all times, because losing something essential, like a tool or a cooking pot, could quickly turn inconvenient into genuinely problematic. You double-check your belongings, just in case. The pan you bought earlier is still there, quietly reminding you of your original goal. Gold. Right. Easy to forget, sometimes. As the sun rises, the camp begins to move. Wagons roll forward, animals step into motion, and the trail stretches out ahead of you once more. Today's path feels different. Not dramatically, but enough to notice. The terrain shifts slightly, less familiar, more open. The air carries a different scent, drier somehow, with hints of grass and dust blending together. You walk beside the wagon for a while, letting your legs do some of the work. The ground beneath your boots is firm, each step steady, rhythmic. Step. 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 It's almost soothing. Until, of course, you realize your legs are starting to feel like they belong to someone else. A light joke slips into your thoughts. Ah yes, the authentic 1849 fitness program. Walk until you forget what sitting feels like. Still, you keep going. Because everyone else is. And because stopping isn't really an option. Midday brings a pause. The wagons gather in a loose circle, creating a temporary sense of order in the vast open landscape. People rest, eat, tend to small tasks that somehow feel both urgent and routine. You sit with a few fellow travellers, sharing a meal that's familiar. Beans, again, with a slightly different texture that suggests someone tried something new. It's appreciated. Conversation drifts easily. Someone tells a story about back home. Another person shares a rumour they heard from a passing group, something about a shortcut that may or may not exist. There's a brief debate about whether it's worth considering. Historians still argue whether these so-called shortcuts saved time or caused more trouble than they were worth. Some routes did offer advantages, while others led travellers into more difficult terrain, adding days or even weeks to the journey. You listen, quietly weighing the idea. A shortcut sounds appealing, but so does not getting lost in the middle of nowhere. It's a delicate balance. After the break, the journey resumes. The sun climbs higher and the heat settles in. It's not unbearable, but it's persistent. The kind of warmth that slowly drains your energy, making each step feel slightly heavier than the last. You notice how people adapt. Hats pulled low, sleeves adjusted. Movements become more deliberate, conserving energy where possible. It's a quiet form of teamwork, everyone adjusting in their own way, yet moving together. Later in the afternoon, you come across a small stream. It's not large, not dramatic, but it feels like a gift. The sound of water is immediately refreshing, a soft contrast to the dry rhythm of the trail. You kneel beside it, letting the cool water run over your hands. For a moment it reminds you of that first river back at Sutter's Mill. You find yourself glancing down, almost instinctively, as if expecting to see a glimmer of gold. Nothing, just clear water, smooth stones, and your own reflection looking slightly more tired than you remember. Still, it's a comforting pause. You refill containers, splash your face, and take a few extra seconds to simply be still. Because stillness is rare out here. As evening approaches, the camp forms again. Fires are lit, meals are prepared. The familiar routine settles in, bringing with it a sense of calm. You sit by the fire, listening to the quiet murmur of voices. Someone nearby hums a tune. Soft, steady, almost hypnotic. It blends with the crackle of the fire and the distant sounds of the landscape, creating a kind of natural lullaby. You realise that despite the challenges, there's something oddly peaceful about this life. It's simpler, not easier, but simpler. Your world has narrowed to the essentials: movement, rest, food, companionship. The complexities of your old life feel distant, almost abstract. And yet, the purpose remains. Goal. The idea lingers, even if it's no longer at the front of your mind every moment. A second-like joke forms as you stare into the fire. At this point, even a small piece would be nice. Just enough to justify all these beans. You smile slightly, the thought fading into the warmth of the evening. Around you, people settle in. Conversations quiet down. The energy of the day slowly dissolves into rest. You lie back, looking up at the sky once more. The stars feel familiar now, like quiet companions marking the passage of time. You think about the journey so far, the miles behind you, the miles ahead, and somewhere in between, the quiet realization that this experience, this long, steady movement west, is shaping your days in ways you never expected. Not just changing where you are, but how you live, one simple, repetitive, quietly meaningful moment at a time. At first, you don't notice the moment the trail becomes something else. It's gradual. The land begins to shift again, subtly at first, then more insistently. The open stretches give way to signs of something busier, more crowded. You see more wagons than before, more people moving in the same direction, all drawn toward the same distant idea. And then, almost without warning, you arrive at the edge of a place that doesn't feel like the quiet frontier anymore. It feels loud. Not in the overwhelming modern sense, but in a layered, restless way. Voices overlap, tools clatter, animals shift and call out. The air itself seems busier, carrying the scent of smoke, food, and something metallic you can't quite place. You've reached the growing edges of San Francisco. A mainstream historical fact: before the California Gold Rush, San Francisco was a small settlement with a population of just a few hundred. By 1849, it had exploded into a booming city with tens of thousands of people, transforming almost overnight into a chaotic hub of activity. And chaotic feels like an understatement. You guide the wagon slowly through uneven streets, if they can even be called streets. Some are muddy, others are half-formed paths where buildings seem to appear in no particular order, like someone scattered them and hoped for the best. Tents stand beside wooden structures. Some buildings lean slightly, as if reconsidering their life choices. Others look freshly built, the wood still pale and new. Everywhere you look there's movement. People arriving, people leaving, people carrying tools, supplies, dreams. You step down from the wagon, your legs momentarily unsure of themselves after so many days of steady travel. The ground feels different here, less predictable, more crowded. You take a slow walk through the area, absorbing the details. A row of makeshift shops lines one side of a path. One sells boots, another offers food that smells surprisingly good after weeks on the trail. There's a place that appears to specialize in something involving metal tools and confident shouting. A quirky tidbit: many ships that arrived in San Francisco during the gold rush were abandoned by their crews, who rushed off to the goldfields. Some of these ships were later repurposed into warehouses, hotels, or even jails, because apparently, if you leave a perfectly good ship behind, someone will find a creative use for it. You pause, imagining that. A hotel made from a ship. It sounds oddly comfortable, or possibly very creaky. Nearby you overhear a conversation between two men debating prices. $5 for eggs? One says, clearly shocked. Take it or leave it, the other replies. You blink. $5 for eggs. A second light joke forms instantly. At this rate, the eggs might be worth more than the gold. But it's not entirely a joke. A mainstream historical fact: during the height of the gold rush, the cost of basic goods skyrocketed. Simple items like food, clothing and tools became incredibly expensive due to high demand and limited supply. You glance at your own supplies, suddenly feeling a quiet sense of relief that you packed as much as you did, even if it means eating beans for the foreseeable future. As you move deeper into the settlement, you notice the diversity of the crowd. People from different regions, different countries, different backgrounds, all gathered in one place, united by a shared goal. You hear accents you don't recognize, see clothing styles that feel unfamiliar. It's a meeting point of cultures, ideas, and expectations. Historians still argue whether this rapid mixing of cultures led more to cooperation or conflict. Some accounts highlight shared efforts and mutual support, while others describe tensions and misunderstandings in a place where so many different worlds collided at once. Standing here,